be asked to give the message today. So Reverend Margaret, Barry, they're all away. They're both away. Let's party. I'll keep a secret, and you know. So let me get my notes here. So, what's a musician have to say about it? You know, all this stuff. Is it just pretty songs and flowery songs? Is there anything behind it, you know? So a little bit about myself. I've been obviously playing music for a good while. When I was young, I grew up upstate New York and from a mixed parentage. My father is Jewish and my mother's black and Native American. And so I've, had quite a diverse upbringing, with all these different energies tugging at me and pulling me and, confusing me as a child, as to where my place is. And there was one period of time I was hanging out with one side of my, genealogy and another side, on another side. So my father, though not a religious man, had enough sense to say, you know what, I'm going to put you in Hebrew school so you can learn Hebrew and at least touch it, at least know it. At least have the experience. And so when I would come home, I would start learning Hebrew and going along with the whole teaching of the Hebraic laws and so on. And so at night I would come home, and I'm in my neighborhood, back in my neighborhood, where my babysitter was a Baptist. She was a Holy Roller Baptist, who had a big church down the corner, and they were holy rolling, And she would come. I would, when I would come home, and she'd be there at night talking to me. So the rabbis were telling me one thing, and my babysitter was telling me about Jesus and the rapture. And she was telling me all about, the whole thing that comes along with that, all that energy that comes along with that, and I could feel the faith and the conviction from what her heart expressed. So it moved me, but it also confused me because, I'm hearing about that. I never heard anything about Jesus in Hebrew class. It went as far as Moses, And so I was very confused, and I recall going to the rabbis the very next day, and I said, well, what about Jesus? And I was crying in class. They had to pull me out of the class because I was confused. They pulled me in the other room, and I had questions. They couldn't answer it. What about the rapture? And not that he probably couldn't answer it, but he didn't know how to address a 10-year-old, 8-year-old boy, right? He didn't know how to give me the right answers. So it really left something inside me. So then as I, matured a little bit, I still had questions. And one of my father's friends was a devotee of Meher Baba. Anybody ever heard of Meher Baba? Meher Baba was an avatar from India, but he was half Persian and half Indian. And so he was like along the orders of Sai Baba. And he was known, but he was known as an avatar of his age, of his time. And I think it was in the late 20s and early 30s. And so that was before Mahesh Yogi, that taught the Beatles and all the different gurus that we came to know about in the late 60s. So he was early on, and he was known as, and so my dad's friend, Seymour, he explained to me that he was a God man, and I remember he took me on a ride one time. He showed me this book with Meher Baba in it, and I saw this man's face, and it moved me, moved me deeply, because I could feel energy. So what does it mean for him to be a God man? What does that mean? It means that he's elevated to the point within himself, his own evolution. He's evolved high enough that he has reached a higher frequency. And of course, I didn't understand that, but it stuck with me. It was a seed that was planted in me. And so these kind of things were swirling around in my little young mind. And then I started to get in touch with my native roots, and I started to, learn about Native American culture, and I used to go camping and get closer to nature, and I used to sing in the woods and whatnot. I felt this closeness, and I remember coming home and whittling down a piece of wood, right, and painting it blue, and creating my own affirmation. And I sat under a table, and I'm sure that a lot of people have had similar childhood experiences in this room, because obviously you all are on the spiritual path, so you've had some spiritual experiences or yearnings, So I remember being under this desk, and I cuddled up under this desk, and I took my stick and I rocked back and forth, as in the Jewish tradition that they call it davening, right, which is the way they pray, And so I was like, blue, God loves you. Blue, God loves you. That was my mantra. That was my affirmation. So, so these are the things that kind of like formed my early spiritual yearnings. And then when I got through high school, I started to, or junior high school, the end of elementary to junior high school, I started to notice my musical abilities, and we were singing. Okay, give my age away a little bit. My cousins were singing Motown, all the Motown hits. So I come home on this side of town, and studying Hebrew and stuff, and then I would go visit my cousins and spend the night, which I always wanted to be at. They were listening to all the Motown hits, and so I'm learning all this music. And my mother was playing all the old jazz, the jazz greats, Coltrane, Dinah Washington, Gloria Lynn, Nancy Wilson, Charlie Parker. All that stuff her room was next to mine, so I was listening to that music, and that music was going in my subconscious mind because my room was next to hers. And so I have all this jazz now in my soul, and Motown in my soul. James Brown. When James Brown came to town, oh my God! I remember my dad came to visit because he lived, in another city. So he came to visit and took me to see James Brown concert because I begged him until he did. So I went to see James Brown, and we were way up in the nosebleed section. And I was like, this is not gonna work. He turned around and looked for me, and I was gone. Where was I? I was running right up to the edge of the stage, and everybody was rushing the stage, when he came out. And he was terrified. Where's my child? So he ran and he found me, and he watched me, he saw me, he got like as close as he could reach, and he saw that I was okay, but I was just, So that's how come I get so funky sometimes, Yeah, so these are the things that form me. I'm bringing you into my world and letting you see who I am. And so, the spiritual, so when I got to college, I saw these men who were walking around in white robes, and they would look like ghosts. They were just like spiritual, mystical ghosts. They were walking around, and I would almost see them and then not see them anymore. I thought I was imagining it, And it turns out they were Sufi. They were Sufi Muslims, right? So now here comes, so now I've got all these different spiritual paths that I've been touched on, right? So here comes Islam now. So it's almost like it was by design, beyond my control, that I was being guided to experience all that I needed, right? So they were telling me about, their spiritual leader, and they were teaching me about the mystical aspects about Abraham and the significance of the Quran, and how it was the scripture that came out of the Old and the New Testament, and it was the fulfillment of the Old and New Testament, and the seed of Isaac and Ishmael coming together to form the crescent, and so these were, in my young mind, it was very, very powerful. So of course I became a devotee. This is something, and so these are my initiations, right? Now, everybody, a show of hands, there are different levels of initiations, okay? And you don't have to necessarily be physically and technically and officially initiated into a certain science or school of thought. It is just what happens by you merging with that. So there's different levels. There's a seeker and there's an adept. An adept is somebody who's gone through an initiation, their initiations, and have been deeply along in their evolution of understanding of a specific metaphysical school of thought. So, and that would include those who have come, developed in this new thought, in science of mind. Some people are seeking, and some people are adept. So seekers would be the people that know that there's a spiritual calling, there's a yearning to understand what the mysteries of this world are, the mysteries of life, right? But may not know how to find it, or fully understand the mechanics of it and the whole doctrine, so to speak. And then there are people that are really well along in their development. So how many would say that they are adept? All right. Okay, good. That's exactly right. And how many would fall under the category of seeker? Okay. Which is most of the world, because there's so much stuff going on in the world. So much stuff going on in the world. And the internet, as amazing as it is, because now, people can talk. People can actually bond with people in China, people in the Himalayas, people in Australia, in a way that it's never before. So communication is incredible. But at the same time, there's a lot of crap that comes, a lot of things that are designed to confuse, right, out there. So, it has its pros and its cons. So all that information that's coming in, it's no wonder why people are so, so versed and so tuned in on what they know to be true in their heart. You all are here because you feel something in your heart, that there's something to this. And we all grew up, in these various religions, influences, or not. But these influences have been around us, whether or not you were in the church or mosque or synagogue or not. You hear things. So our understanding of Creator, understanding of God, the mysteries of God, and understanding of our relationship to it have been a program. As I say in the Kabbalah class, I always talk about programming, that we are programmed, and that's why we're not able to access our superpower. So let's talk about that for a second. My message today really is to bring clarity to some of these things. And so what does it mean to be God realized? What does it mean to God realized? Does it mean that we should all strive to realize that Father, the God, is to be worshipped, and that we alone are powerless sinners? But if we just have faith and without question pray, that we will be admitted into heaven in the sky. And if we deviate from such a doctrine, we will go straight to hell. Is that what God realization is? Obviously not, right? that's what we're trying to deprogram from. And in Kabbalah class, I also go into what's behind that programming. Where did that programming come from? What's the agenda? Why is it so hard for us to get to that clarity? Because by design, everything is made dense in this world we live in this, as we see it in three-dimensional form. Everything is really made dense, and it's made confusing so that we cannot access our power. Because if we access our power and we wake up from this dream, then that's the end of certain people's reality of control and power. So, that's why it's very powerful thing to understand who you really are. So that doctrine of God outside of ourselves, I'm here to clarify. For those seekers who are confused about, well, they talk about God is all there is, right? What does that really mean? God is all there is. I sing about it. Oh, nice song. What does it mean? What is it behind it? God is all there is. Well, that means wait a minute, because I learned that God is something that we pray to, right? And that is something outside of ourselves. And God created everything separate from creation, separate from creation, and that you have to attain a certain level to even be included in godlike. So let's go back to the Old Testament when they talk about, created in the image of God. Image. Now, for those people 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, you have to remember that things that were written about and spoken about were things that today we'd look and say, oh, well, yeah, that's a hologram. You're talking about a hologram. Or, and I saw I saw something that came out of the skies that made a thunderous noise and light and lights, and it appeared through the clouds, and it hovered over. Oh, you're talking about a spaceship, So the things that were images back in the Old Testament, when you look at it through the lens of modern day lens, it's like, oh, that's what they're talking about. The wheels within the wheels in Ezekiel, right? The wheels within wheels. It's a spaceship, So what is that? How does that relate? When God is all there, when we talk about in the image of God, if we are a hologram of that which creates everything, then that means that that is us. We are the same stuff. Joni Mitchell's song. We are stardust. We are golden, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden. Right? We are stardust. So, like the song says, I am light, I am love, heaven is within me. Oh, wait a minute. Heaven is not some place that I have to get to? Oh, no. Heaven is already here. It's waiting inside each and every one of us. Heaven is waiting for us to find it. That God self, that God part of us. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it in us? And how come we can't get to it? Why can't we reach the level of living 1,000 years or more? Okay, I didn't say 100. I said 1,000 or more. Why can't we access that? It says we are only using 10 to 15% of our brain capacity. Why? And more importantly, how do we access it? How do we access the other 90 to 85%, or even 95% in some cases? How do we access that ability? And that's the God stuff that we're missing. It's like the thought of the notion to go around saying that I am God. Boy, if you say that in a church or a mosque or synagogue, you are blaspheming, right? You are blaspheming, and you are condemned to hell for even saying such a thing. But to understand it in context is the key. It doesn't mean from an egotistical standpoint that you are God. Because obviously, from coming from a place of ego, you are not God. You know? So then that goes into a Rastafarian culture. Everybody's heard, you know, Rastafari say, I and I man do this, and I and I man command that, right? So when a Rasta says, I and I, he's making a denotation of the little I and the big I, right? So there's a little I, which is your ego self, egoic self, and the big I, which is your God self, which is what we are striving to awaken. All these things about learning these tools in science of mind, the science of mind. Learn the mechanics and the technology of how to access that untapped reservoir, that what they call junk science, right? Why would they even call it that? Who made up that name, junk science? You know, or the dark part, the dark matter, you know? Well, dark matter means that it's in the dark, it's hidden, and it's locked in. And so at some point in history, somebody was tampering with our DNA and locked up. Did you know that, you know the coils that go around the medicine staff, right? Well, first of all, the serpents that go around the medicine staff represent your spinal column, which is where we know in science of mind is where the chakras or the energy centers line up in your spine, right? So there's only 2 coils that wrap around the spinal column. And that is DNA, that represents 2 strands of DNA. So originally, we had 12 strands of DNA. We meaning human species. We had 12 strands. So what happened to the other 10 strands of DNA? And why aren't we, what's that all about, right? So all of those are still there, but they're dormant. They've been like, you know, like if when the electrician comes in the house and you got some problems with the fuse box, and he just cuts off breaker, you know, 10 through 20, right? He cuts off those because if there's a problem over there, we just want to cut those off. You just can function on these couple circuits right here, and it's enough to run your, you know, couple things. And so that's what it's really like. And I'm here to tell you today, the message today is that God realizing is achievable in this life cycle, in your lifetime. It all depends on how much you want it and how bad you want it. You ever notice why there are people that are mega wealthy, billionaires? Okay, in some cases, that money was handed down, okay? And in some cases, people earned it and built it in their lifetime, right? How did they build it? What differentiates people that make millions of dollars and billions of dollars with common folk who are locked into a slave system of mortgage and debt, right? And can't seem to climb out of that. What's the difference? Well, you know, are these people, do they have something that we don't have? You know? And of course the answer is absolutely not. Positively not. It's about focus. It's about focusing your energies. We are made of consciousness and energy. Everything in life is consciousness and energy. So why can't we access that? Because we are scattered. Our energies are scattered all over the place. So if you want, and you know, the money is wonderful, a wonderful thing because it's energy. It's just energy. And so if you want to get in the realm of focusing your energy so that you can build your empire, whether your wealth is just in finances or wealth of being, as we always talk about. Abundance, to bring abundance abundance your way, to bring those streams of currency your way. Right? So how does it achieved? Focusing. How do we focus when things are being pulled at us from every direction, every day, 36 hours a day? Right? We are being pulled in all kind of directions. How do we focus down? Right? I was watching Tyler Perry gave an interview about how he made a success. When he first started, he had one idea, and he worked that idea, and for 10 years, he just kept getting shot down, and shot down, and shot down, and shot down for 10 years. But he focused, and he stuck with that one idea. He said, listen, when you're working on a dream or an idea, you stick with that idea. No matter, don't let anything steer you away, because that's the thing that scatters you. You stay focused. If it's a good idea, if it's a great idea, you stick with it. Okay? So now let's apply that to wealth. But this is not a workshop on wealth, per se. This is a workshop on God realization. And so if you want to apply that to God realizing, right? You focus. How do we do that? What are the tools that we need to do that? Anybody? Meditation. Going within. All these talks every week, they're just a signpost like this. Back to you. Right? The church told us, in order to get to heaven, you have to come to church. There's no other way for you to get to heaven. The synagogue, you have to come. The mosque, you have to come. Now, the Eastern philosophies have always been touching on the true access, right? Because it's always been about self-realization, always. So why is this Western Judeo-Christian phenomenon that we all came up under, why is it like that? Because that was a plan to control people and keep people numb and keep people under control and slaves, right? So let's be free. Let's free ourselves. Okay, let us free ourselves by going inward. What does that mean to go inward? Okay, I get it. I know meditation, it calms your nerves. It does, it balances you. Yeah, but that's true. That is true. It will help you. Okay, there are different levels of everything, right? There's different levels. Right? And as you go up in the dimensional levels, as you go to higher dimensions, you start to see a difference. Okay, so in a three-dimensional setting, it will calm your stress. It will relieve your stress. Meditation will relieve your stress and allow you to go back in the world and deal with your everyday slavery, right? To handle it. So now, if you go next level, okay, if you meditate, it will tap you into your chi, your life force, and it will strengthen your chi being strengthened because of you focusing, right, inside. Then you start to eliminate ailments, okay? And you go another level, you start to awaken your pineal gland. The pineal gland is halfway between your temple and your forehead, right? Is a small gland that when you came through the birth canal, was awakened, was fully open. That's why babies tend to look like they can just smile at will, and who are they smiling? They can't even see yet. They're just smiling, and they are tapping into and higher frequencies, higher channels within themselves, and they're completely open. That's why you're supposed to guard your children when they're first born. You don't let them go see people. You keep them close, right? And so when a child becomes 7, by the time a child becomes 7, the person is formed and the pineal gland gets closed up. It gets calcified. It gets crystallized. So in that crystal, inside that crystal, inside each and every one of our crystals that we have here in our temple, our body is our temple, okay? In each one of our temples is a crystal that, if awakened, lies the answers to everything in the universe. Not just on Earth, not just in our solar system, but in the whole galaxy and beyond, because our galaxy is just one galaxy of many galaxies that are spinning around. We have everything inside our crystals. Can't get to it. We're blocked. All of our other DNA strands are cut off. They're dormant. Only way to activate it is to put attention. Now, okay, if we follow New Thought and Science of Mind, it teaches us that the main message that I get from Science of Mind is that our words and our thoughts have power. That's the main message. And by the way, I was, preparing for this message today. I said, you know what? I could approach this different ways. Let me go and look up Ernest Holmes and really get into this man and get in, merge with him and feel him. So what I noticed was that Ernest Holmes was touching on a lot of all of the different cultures, all the different spiritual paths, and synthesizing it in a way that his audience was Christian, right? So he still refers to God, the God outside of yourself. What is the affirmation? That I acknowledge that there's a presence that is greater than me, right? I believe personally, okay, officially, that he was addressing a certain audience. He couldn't come too deep. He couldn't come too deep. Now, was it how many years later, right? Here we are. There's more information. We know a lot more, okay? There's nothing outside of you. There's no savior outside of you. It's all in you. Not ego, but your higher self. The self that is selfless, that lives inside that crystal, that yearns to be activated. It yearns to be activated, yearns to be opened up. And so, the pineal gland, if you focus on that pineal gland and you say, if we were able to focus our attention to the point where nothing deviates from it, from what we want and what we desire, right? Deleting all the programming outside of ourselves, it's going to expand. Whatever you think is going to expand. As we know, this is our mantra every week, right? So I want to take you behind the curtain and show you the inner workings of how that science is and that technology. That technology is as simple as getting to yourself and focusing every day. Some way, somehow. I know my Kabbalah study class is probably tired of, okay, I know already. But that is it. That is the meat and potatoes of what it's really all about, to be God realized, to realize your fullness, your full potential in this life. Okay, you can choose not to. It is your choice. We have free will. It is our choice to either accomplish that in this life cycle, or wait till another one, or another one, or another one, because that's all we do anyway. Our soul, your soul, has been here since the beginning. You've always been here, because we know that spirit cannot be destroyed. It only changes form. We've always been here. And your soul is just evolving and experience each lifetime to experience the dance of living, the dance of remembering. Because each time, see, but the catch is that every time we come through the birth canal, we're starting all over from scratch. Because that veil is put over you every time you burst through the birth canal, and we forgot again. So what is the purpose of life? The purpose of life. What is the purpose of life?
Expand.
All right, that's one way of looking at it. That's right, absolutely.
To learn who you are.
To remember. To remember who you are. Right? To remember. To break that crystal open. To melt the crystal and make it soft again. Utilize your crystal to activate your crystals. Yeah, we have crystals. These crystals will help you to remember, to focus on you. It's all inside you. All inside you. Is that my time?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been an honor. And we'll go deeper into the beyond the veil. We'll go deeper down the rabbit hole in Kabbalah class. All right. Give thanks.